Hey everybody, this is footage from my old laptop right before the motherboard burnt up. I was editing this video when my computer died. I made this video before I got married when the apartment was cluttered with so much stuff. Even though things were very busy and messy, I wanted to make a tutorial for dancers stuck at home. So many things happened between then and now, but despite this long hiatus that I've been gone, I hope this can still be useful for some of you. I really wanted to squeeze in a pre-pointe tutorial. A lot of people ask me for pre-pointe exercises, but this one's going to be a little different. This is going to be a pre-pointe exercise that you can do at home, and you can do it without pointe shoes, because I know a lot of you may still be stuck at home, or your dance studios are not open yet because of COVID, or you haven't been able to go to work, so you're too poor to even afford pointe shoes right now. So these are pre-pointe exercises that you do not need pointe shoes for, and they're pretty easy. Well, no, they're not easy. They're actually really, really hard, and they make your feet really, really sore, but it's not technically difficult. You can do it with just a tiny amount of space. You don't need a lot of space. You don't need a bar. You just need somewhere to sit and somewhere to maybe do the stretchy, what is this, down dog pose? I don't even know what this is. So this is something that anybody can do anywhere, regardless of your financial situation or your space situation, because I clearly don't have space right now either. This tutorial will target the specific muscles that you need to get from demi-pointe to pointe, and if you can do this barefoot or with socks on, I guarantee that the day you step into real pointe shoes, that'll be a breeze. That'll be a walk in the park compared to what you will be doing at home without pointe shoes. So here we go. So even if you are a strong dancer in demi-pointe, that doesn't necessarily mean that pointe will come easy to you. And that's because when we're wearing pointe shoes, we have this bonus movement that we call roll through. That's when you roll through the shoe, the stiff shoe. This movement relies on pure toe strength to push from demi-pointe to full pointe. There's no need to do this while we're dancing in slippers, so we never develop this strength until the pointe shoes are actually on our feet. But it's still really important to learn this because this is what gives us smooth transitions between flat and pointe. Rolling through is how dancers look fluid and smooth in their pointe shoes rather than clunking up and thudding down. So here's what's happening inside the shoe. We get this high demi-pointe, toes, 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 and then it pushes up into pointe. So we're really comfortable with dancing in demi-pointe because that's what we do in slippers, but then you have this moment where it's literally just your toes pushing your whole weight up over the box of your pointe shoes. That's what we need to work on. People with even length toes will generally have an easier time with pointe work, lucky you. The rest of us typically rely on our first two toes to support our weight. We need to exercise to target these little toe muscles, and to get them nice and strong and ready for a real pair of pointe shoes. So while we're on the topic of toe length, I have to let you know to please ignore my second toe. I am one of those unlucky people that has the second toe longer than my big toe, and when I'm barefoot, my toe appears to curl under. Your toes should not actually be curling in pointe shoes. The shoes are supportive and stiff to keep your toes straight. With my padding and the way I tape my toes stay straight, so pay no mind to the curling second toe in this section. So we're actually going to sit on the couch or a chair and put your feet in releve right underneath your knees. You want your feet propped up right underneath your knees because you want to keep a straight line from your knee to your ankle down to the ball of your foot, as if you were standing in releve in the middle of the floor. So you don't want your feet too far out in front of you, and you don't want them tucked too far behind you because we don't dance like that. We want to imitate the straight leg line as if we are already dancing in pointe. And just like that, you're going to practice rolling through up and down, focusing on your toes. Believe it or not, slower is better. The slower you go, the smoother and more fluid and more controlled you can make the movements, and you can focus on those tiny little toe muscles. If you want to make this more challenging, pitch your upper body forward, like lean forward with your torso, and you get more of your weight over your thighs. This transfers more of your sitting weight into your legs and feet, and so it's giving you more weight and more resistance, so you have to work much harder. You'd be surprised how much harder just shifting your weight forward makes this. If your feet aren't that strong yet and you need to make it easier, lean back with your torso. That way your butt and your back will take some of the weight off of your feet. You can always adjust to your needs, but the goal is to build up strength, so you have to keep challenging yourself. Even though this looks easy because we're sitting on our butts, your feet should be feeling the burn. Just because you're sitting does not mean that your feet are not working. You can also experiment with different positions. For example, you can try this slightly turned out, like a first position. But you still want to keep a straight line from your knee down to your ankle. So even if you're doing this in first position, keep your feet tucked under your knees. You don't want to overcross your feet into a fifth position, and you don't want to open up too wide into a second position, because then none of the weight is really getting into your feet. It's kind of like your butt is taking most of the weight at that point. So if you're really determined to practice this in a turned out position, it may take some readjusting. You just have to make sure the weight is getting over your toes. So if you're having trouble with like this turned out first position thing, you can stay in parallel. You will still be developing those muscles even if you stay in parallel. And remember, you can use your upper body to adjust how much weight you want going over your feet. If you lean forward, more of your weight is pushed over your feet and you work harder, and leaning back makes it a little easier. You might start out leaning back and then gradually go more forward as your feet get stronger. Who would have thought you could build up the muscles in your feet while you sit on the couch and watch Netflix? Some of you may be looking at this exercise and wondering, like, why not just use a TheraBand? And it's true, a TheraBand is similar, but there are a few advantages to doing it on the couch. For example, if you're sitting on the couch, you're hands-free. You don't need a hand to hold a TheraBand. If you're doing it with a TheraBand, you're also not using your own weight. A TheraBand just conditions you to push through the TheraBand. It doesn't train you to push through weight and to feel weight on the tips of your toes. It's important to get used to feeling that pressure on the tips of your toes. And typically when you use a TheraBand, your heel rests on the floor. The TheraBand isn't going to show weakness or wobbles in your ankles. By putting the weight in your feet, it exposes any wobbles or weaknesses that you might have. So you need to keep your ankles straight when you're doing this on the floor. You can even prop up a little mirror in front of you so you can keep an eye on your ankles while you do this. The straighter you keep your ankles, the stronger you will be. You cannot sickle. This is how you're going to build up the muscles to stabilize your ankle and prevent sprains. It is normal to feel some foot cramps. Right underneath your arch and right underneath your toes are probably going to start getting a warm, burning sensation. That's good. That means you are targeting the muscles that you need to develop to push yourself up into point shoes. Just keep repeating this until you get so sore that you can't do it anymore. I know this is a weird exercise, but I like it because anybody can do it. You don't need a studio, it's convenient, and it's really hard to injure yourself by working this way. You're seated, you're not likely to sprain an ankle by doing this, and you're getting the feel of working through a point shoe without ever having to buy a point shoe. So you don't even need to have money to do this exercise. And now we have the final challenge if you want to make this really hard, but beware, this puts a lot of pressure on your toes. Do the same thing in the downward dog pose to try to get the feeling of doing this with straight knees. This is a lot harder than it looks, but you can put more of your weight in your hands if you need it to be a little easier. But this is like the advanced version. This is about as much weight as you can put into your feet without actually standing upright. This is actually an exercise I like to do with new pointe shoes, so you can do this with your shoes too. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. I know it seems like the lazy way to prepare for pointe, but if you do it carefully, your feet will get stronger. I wanted to come up with a creative exercise that dancers can do at home during these COVID lockdowns. I was actually surprised at how effective this is. So before we go, I actually have a couple more announcements to make. I am no longer requesting that anybody send me donations. I don't feel comfortable asking for a handout during a pandemic, and especially when I'm not posting very often anymore. But what you could do is follow my other channel, Victoria BR. This is just my default channel. I like to post product reviews and talk about vegan food in my spare time. I would like to monetize this channel and maybe make some money making some salty reviews, because I love to talk shit. So I need 1,000 subscribers before I can monetize, so it would mean a lot if you could go subscribe to this one as well. And that's about it. So stay salty, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again. Take care.